I do want to talk about how things are changing on the margin, and at the risk of zooming out too far, but kind of the one other point there, Dan, on the origins of this is how much do you think kind of the just whole system was proven out the way we lowered rates, we put money into capital markets. For anyone who kind of doubts that prosperity stems from innovation, can we attribute some of this to the money that was injected into the economy to get these ideas flowing, right? Isn't that like how tech revolutions happen?
Of course. That's how revolutions happen. I mean, it goes back no different than you could go back to when I covered textile financial crisis and TARP and everything else. That created the next level of innovation from 2010 to probably 2016, 2017. That's how the system works, how it should work. And I think when you look at essentially, Fed engineering, a Pillsbury Doughboy soft landing, and that's why a lot of times the bears, they sound smart with their spreadsheets and valuations, but they've missed every transformational tech name the last 15 years.
Okay, so then where we're at right now, do we need any additional economic stimuli, or are the wheels and the gears kind of turning themselves now that we've had the AI and the breakthrough from Nvidia, particularly on powering all this stuff? How much is kind of self-moving now, Dan?
I think 50% self-moving, 50% you still need. And that's why like lowering of taxes, deregulation, essentially when it comes to Con, FTC, GON, others. I think when it comes to where money is being spent, Inflation Reduction Act, that's going to be massively shifted. I think Musk is going to play a huge role there. It's not necessarily kind of like the red tape poster child, like an Intel. It's going to be much more focused on the AI. I think a hyperscaler is going to benefit, the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Palantir, and others. Look, I think the reality is that we are on the cusp of really an unprecedented revolution. But that's why when you combine that with Trump getting in a red sweep, it's a Cinderella story for big tech. And I think that's why we've even seen that significant rally since Trump got in.
Buckle up, because today's stock market buzz is hotter than ever, with Nvidia Corp leading the charge. Just yesterday, the tech giant's shares skyrocketed by nearly 5% ahead of its much-anticipated quarterly earnings report. Investors are on the edge of their seats, with Nvidia poised to sweep the field as it allies with tech behemoth, Meta, Google, and Microsoft in ramping up capital for AI advancements. But that's not all. Tesla and Walmart, among others, are also stirring the pot with their share gains. Get ready to dive into a whirlwind of stock market magic, where AI reigns supreme and Nvidia holds the scepter. Welcome back, everyone, to Investocracy.
Nvidia will, meantime, release its quarterly results after the closing bell tomorrow. Expectations are high despite reports of overheating issues with its newest chips. Our next guest believes Nvidia will beat estimates, and there is no alternative as a pure play in this area. But he does have some add-on names that support the space if you're looking for a little bit lower volatility. David Miller is co-founder and chief investment officer at Catalyst Funds. David, welcome. Good to have you with us. Your views on Nvidia have changed, I'm told, since the last time you were with us. Explain what you were feeling then and what you're feeling now and why.
Yeah, well, my views have changed because the data's changed, so my views changed with it. Essentially, the old data essentially told you that you should try to model off of Moore's Law. But with this most recent earnings report that we saw from Meta, it's become clear that things with AI are not behaving like Moore's Law, meaning that the Llama 4 models they've indicated will take 10 times as much compute to train as Llama 3 did. And when you look at Meta's last quarter spend, they're north of $8 billion CapEx, and most of that was going to this data networking. So you can see from the hyperscalers that we've already essentially baked in a beat for NVIDIA's earnings, and that's why I'm more bullish than I was previously.
So in short then, because it's going to take so much more computing power and because NVIDIA is really right now the monopoly power in that space, there's no place to go but to NVIDIA to get the power you need.
Exactly. NVIDIA is essentially a pure monopoly, and that's continuing with their next generation Blackwell chips. Those won't be in this quarter's earnings, but they will start next quarter's, and they'll really be baked into the January quarter. But you can already see from the numbers that came out with this very elevated CapEx spending by the hyperscalers, that money is clearly going to NVIDIA for their current iteration of chips. And they've indicated, at least in particular, for Meta, that's going to continue to escalate quite rapidly. But the same trend we're going to see at Google and Microsoft. These companies have no choice but to compete in that arms race.
Right.
You can't afford to lose an AI.
In the ever-volatile kingdom of Wall Street, Nvidia Corp sits comfortably on the throne with analysts touting its prowess as the only game in town when it comes to AI capital expenditures. Jensen Huang's brainchild has cemented its role in the tech arena, drawing plaudits from the likes of Wedbush analyst Dan Ives, who boldly hailed the impending beat-and-raise scenario for Nvidia's earnings. Ives didn't miss the chance to throw some spice into his predictions, quipping about the potential $2 billion beat paired with a $2 billion guidance lift, making it sound almost like Nvidia's earnings were a weekend blockbuster release. While Nvidia basks in the limelight, Tesla isn't just along for the ride. Its shares saw a remarkable 2% upswing, contributing to an impressive 38% climb for the month. However, Nvidia's trajectory this week has been as intriguing as watching a hyperactive stock ticker in Times Square, part technology drama, part business bonanza. With Meta, Google, and Microsoft lavishing funds on AI, it's the perfect climate for Nvidia's tech to flourish. Meta's CapEx surge and Google's daring budget hikes add more fuel to the fire as they set the stage for Nvidia's ascension. But before we go any further, if you want to keep up with Nvidia's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates.
The biggest upside contributor to the S&P by far, about 25 hours ahead of its earnings release, renders a verdict on the overall AI trade. You see NVIDIA up 4.5% right now. Round us out here with a word on what you're expecting out of NVIDIA and also just how central that might be for the broader market, or whether it's going to be kind of filtered through a lot of other factors.
NVIDIA is the AI circulatory system, right? And we're all really clear, if you listen to Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they all implied or explicitly said, we're spending more. Satya said during the earnings call, hardware cannot keep up with demand. And so as NVIDIA being this AI circulatory system, I think you're going to hear about Dell, you're going to hear about what they're doing in NVIDIA, about XAI. Jensen likes to sprinkle in all these other companies that they're working with. And so I think this is going to be another wonderful quarter. I think that everyone already knows that the rate of beats is slowing. I don't think that's any new news. The market's pricing in plus or minus 7%. I mean, NVIDIA is basically at an all-time high here. So there's definitely a lot of optimism going into the print tomorrow. But if you take a step back, this company is still just eating everybody else as it relates to the AI space.
Tech stocks outperforming today as investors prepare for NVIDIA's critical earnings report tomorrow. Let's bring in NVIDIA shareholder Doug Clinton, founder and CEO of Intelligent Alpha, here at Post 9. Doug, good to see you.
See you, Mike.
So it's interesting. There's always this sort of underlying confidence in the overall story with NVIDIA. We know what supply demand is. We know they're, the only game for a certain part of this market. On the other hand, there's all these sort of doubts that filter in, whether it's about the pacing of the rollout in the next generation, the overheating stuff, whether in fact, return on investment is happening. How does that all come together into tomorrow?
I think tomorrow it's almost like deja vu. I mean, to your point, right, last quarter, the issue was Blackwell. Were we going to get a delay? We did get a delay. It was about a quarter. And if you look at what NVIDIA stock did after that, it was kind of well rumored, but still the stock sold off 10+%. It was a pretty decent sell-off.
Yeah.
And so I think going into this quarter, the big topic is going to be this Blackwell issue with overheating. I don't think this issue is nearly as serious. So just to kind of put the two in context, the first issue is really about delaying the entire rollout of this product line. The overheating issue is a little bit more limited. So this is about a specific product, the GB200. It's their top of the line server product. Meta, Microsoft, these are the customers of that product. Even if that gets pushed a month, a quarter, I don't know that that's going to be that big of a deal for this particular report, but it could be something we hear more about into next year.
And then you keep hearing that investors really crave some kind of visibility toward even after next year. I mean, in other words, how much life is behind these demand trends? And into that comes this debate about whether, in fact, things have slowed down in terms of improvement of all these AI models, and what does that mean for the investment pace?
I think that's going to be topic B tomorrow. And I expect Jensen will get a question about the AI scaling laws.
Yes.
Right. And so the scaling laws, just to give the quick 101, is over the last few years, what we've seen in AI model development is the more data that you put into these models, the more compute you use to train the models, the better the models get. Very predictable. And what we've seen in reports more recently from OpenAI, from Google, is that the most recent models that they've trained haven't quite been as good as they expected based on the scaling laws. And it's kind of been a hot topic of debate in Silicon Valley. Even Sam Altman tweeted about it just last week. He said there is no wall. So maybe it's not an issue. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I think Jensen really does need to address that question, because that's the 18 to 24 month picture. Do we get to a point where these companies need to spend on something other than just compute?
In the arena of investor sentiment, the CNN Money Fear and Greed Index stands as a formidable weather vane. Despite geopolitical rumblings from the Ukraine-Russia frontline, it has tipped to a neutral 50.1 from its previous 49.9, signifying a market that is neither frenzied nor panicked. Amid the smoke and mirrors, housing data dipped, yet the Nasdaq glided skyward with a 1% gain. For some comic relief, one might jest that investors often feel their pulses quicken more from Nvidia's fiscal acrobatics than from geopolitical flare-ups. The intertwining narratives in these headlines only bolster Nvidia's mystique. The tech avenue it ventures isn't just paved with AI gold, but commands its share of growing pains, notably the heating issues with new AI chips akin to getting tech enthusiasts to sweat over their investments, literally. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Adam, setting up for tomorrow, of course, we got NVIDIA reporting right here in overtime. How important is that report, especially given it was up, 4% today? AppLovin was up strong again, which speaks to me of optimism. Bitcoin's been doing well. I could name a few other names. How much of the momentum in this market, and perhaps with the NASDAQ, do you think is hinging on that report?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be crucial. Tech really continues to drive a lot of this market. You saw today, tech was the primary cause of the rebound in equity. So, all of the indications out of big tech with the AI momentum, it still seems like it is all, firing all cylinders. We had the Vertiv analyst meeting yesterday. They had a very bullish outlook on data center construction. There's been some noise around Blackwell and whether or not there's a heat issue, an overheating issue, but NVIDIA continues to own this market. They really are not facing a lot of competition, and the major tech players are pouring CapEx into data center construction. And you're also seeing now the AI spend broaden out from beyond those hyperscalers. And this is something that Cisco and others have acknowledged, that enterprises are now pouring money into AI. It's not just the Amazons, Googles, and Microsofts of the world. So all signs suggest that the fundamentals for this market remain very strong. It's just a question of how much is priced into the stock at these levels, where obviously expectations are very, very elevated. Sentiment's already extremely bullish on the story.
As the curtain on today's trading saga descends, Nvidia emerges as the crown jewel, with a near $10 trillion valuation as forecasted by AI pundits. With its AI chips igniting enthusiasm and occasional thermal breaks, it's a stock that forecasters are watching like hawks. Nvidia's perch on the tech summit remains unchallenged, its glimmer undimmed by the market's mood swings. The company's latest share price stands as a testament to its resilient allure, even as after-hours trading nudges it higher. So, what does this all mean for potential investors? With Nvidia's momentum visible through today's market lens, perhaps it's time to seize the moment and consider investing in this beacon of innovation. But then, how do you see it? Is Nvidia set to revolutionize markets further? Or is it just another day of volatile fortunes in the stock market drama? Share your thoughts and let the discussion unfold. And finally, if you would like to know what companies like Nvidia have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.